Hey there people, how you doing? So, today we have the complete comparison between the S21 Ultra and the OnePlus 8 Pro. Now, I understand the OnePlus is last gen flagship, so it's obviously not gonna beat out the S21 Ultra in terms of the feature set and everything, but you gotta keep in mind the OnePlus 8 Pro was essentially one of the best flagships to have come out last year. It was the easiest to recommend because it basically checked almost like every single box when it came to making a flagship. OnePlus unquestionably did a tremendous job with the OnePlus 8 Pro. But the S21 Ultra, well, Samsung did a tremendous job with this one as well, unlike last year, because last year we had way too many issues with Samsung flagships as a whole. So, now I think we can finally make a good comparison between the best from Samsung and the current best from OnePlus, because the OnePlus 9 Pro is like right around the corner. We're gonna see the release soon enough. So with that said, let's begin with the design, because that is where I guess both are already so good with their matte finishes, and both are very comfortable even though super large devices as a whole. I do prefer the curves on the S21 Ultra, on the front that is, whereas the curves on the back of the OnePlus 8 Pro are a little bit more comfortable. So it's a minor difference, not a huge deal to be entirely honest, but I think it's a camera module that really makes a big difference here. Essentially, Samsung has encased the cameras in metal, and I say this in every single video, but it is the most unique looking device in terms of camera modules that I've ever seen. We could argue that the OnePlus looks a little bit more sleek compared to the S21 Ultra's much bulkier and also bolder camera module, but the S21 Ultra has way more cameras than the OnePlus, and design as a whole, I like the S21 Ultra more. This is a little bit simpler, to put it mildly. The S21 Ultra, it looks way more bold, a lot more unique, and the matte black or the phantom black that we have here is the best color, best finish that I've laid my eyes on. The OnePlus isn't bad though, but I definitely pick the S21 Ultra, and if you really want the most minimalist look, then the OnePlus does take a slight upper hand, but other than that, I think the S21 Ultra takes design. Displays. Now this is where things get very interesting, because essentially we have almost identical specs when it comes to the displays. We have 1440p at 120Hz on both, although 120Hz on the S21 Ultra is dynamic, while on the OnePlus 8 Pro we have dynamic 1440p resolution, not the refresh rate, it's the resolution that's dynamic. So far as I've found, the display efficiency is very similar on both. And the OnePlus also has 10-bit color. Now this makes a difference only in HDR content as far as I've seen. In HDR, when you're viewing, let's say HDR 10 or HDR 10 plus even, well, on the OnePlus 8 Pro, basically whenever there are a lot of color gradients, especially like in scenes with sunsets or skies, I have noticed that on the S21 Ultra you'll see mild banding of colors, and it'll feel like an artifact essentially. On the OnePlus 8 Pro, it never happens, because 10-bit color, it smooths out every single gradient and it looks beautiful, just buttery smooth and just the way it should look. Now, does it really make it a deal breaker? I don't think so, because other than the 10-bit color and the slightly cleaner and smoother, less artifacty looking gradients, everything else in terms of display I prefer on the S21 Ultra. I do also like the colors and the contrast balance when it comes to HDR video on the S21 Ultra. We also have a higher peak brightness on the S21 Ultra, so you can see there are quite a few advantages on the S21 Ultra compared to the OnePlus 8 Pro. But for the most part, I don't think either display will disappoint, but this is a comparison, so the winner would, in my opinion, be the S21 Ultra, although the OnePlus with 10-bit color, depending on your preference and your use case, if you really watch a ton of HDR video and you cannot stand the sight of this artifacting, if you notice it, that is, well, then the OnePlus is definitely the way to go. But other than that, I feel like the S21 Ultra's display is just nothing short of incredible. We can now move on to the cameras, because this is where things get very interesting. Now, last year, the OnePlus 8 Pro was just amazing. Like, it stacked up all the way to the likes of the Note 20 Ultra from Samsung, and it even stacked up very well against the latest iPhones, the iPhone 12 series. So, suffice to say, this is through and through a flagship camera setup that we have on the OnePlus 8 Pro. But the S21 Ultra, well, let's just say Samsung put a lot of thought into making these cameras. We not only have amazing HDR on both, we have way more versatility. Like, there is a main camera, there is a 3x and 10x zoom, quite a bit more in terms of just camera hardware alone. On the software side of things, that is processing, I feel like the S21 Ultra is quite a bit better, because mostly in terms of the contrast balance and the colors, it just feels more natural. It just feels, it gives you like punchy and nice, more Samsung looking photographs, if you get my point. But it still feels a lot more balanced, essentially. Like, all the photographs that I take, they have this form of consistency in them that the OnePlus 8 Pro, it gets close, but not a lot. So yeah, photography, I really feel like the S21 Ultra nailed it, and it's definitely better than the OnePlus 8 Pro, at least this time around. I mean, the OnePlus is last year's flagship, so I'm really hoping that the OnePlus 9 Pro, with all of the new camera stuff that we're gonna get, ooh, it's gonna be interesting. So yeah, that's something to look forward to at least. Video. Well, video, I think the OnePlus is actually better. Basically, what I've found is that in good daylight conditions, both are amazing, and 10x zoom on video is so impractical in my opinion that it's pointless to even include it in terms of versatility. Like, the S21 Ultra can go to 10x zoom. Now, where you're gonna use 10x zoom in video, I also don't know. Nonetheless, when we move indoors, in low light video or in backlit situations, in harsher conditions essentially, the OnePlus 8 Pro does pull ahead, because, you know, the OnePlus 8 Pro already has fantastic video capabilities, especially when you turn on the built-in HDR mode. It's fantastic. Just the fidelity of video that you can get from these cameras is staggeringly good. But the S21 Ultra, on the other hand, I mean, you would expect it to be better than before, what we had, let's say, in the Note 20 Ultra, but that's not the case. Apparently, there is this weird smearing issue that I've talked about in numerous videography comparisons, and, you know, even the Note 20 Ultra comparison that I did recently. Well, in low light, whenever there's movement, the video entirely smears up the subject and everything. It looks nasty. So that is a big problem on the S21 Ultra, which is not present on the OnePlus 8 Pro, or rather any other Samsung device even. So it's specific to the S21 Ultra, and kind of sad really, because I had hoped that the S21 Ultra would improve upon what the Note 20 had. You know, not degrade and give us a smeared up look. I personally don't like it at all. Now, you may or may not notice it even, and that depends on personal taste. You can check out my video comparisons, and if you really feel like it's not much of a deal breaker, well, then the S21 Ultra in overall cameras, I feel like then it would pull ahead. But right now, I personally feel like video is a win for the OnePlus 8 Pro, especially because it handles harsher conditions better than the S21 Ultra. Like, that's quite something if you ask me. And ultra wide video, can I just say, it looks beyond incredible on the OnePlus 8 Pro. Like, especially when you're shooting 4K 60 and all that, it really looks good, like noticeably better than what the S21 Ultra can achieve. Oh, and I didn't even mention the selfie camera. Well, the selfie camera on the S21 Ultra is essentially one of the best out there right now, because what Samsung did is that they finally allowed us to entirely switch off beauty mode. Like, you have no skin smoothing. Instead, what you get with the selfies on the S21 Ultra is every little bit of detail that you could have imagined that you'd ever need in your life. Like these selfies, the crispiness and details, it's something else. The OnePlus doesn't even come close, and even in terms of skin tones with both the front and rear cameras, I feel like the S21 Ultra does do a much better job in terms of human subjects. So yeah, overall photography, as I said before, it's easily better on the S21 Ultra. Now for battery life and performance. Well, peak performance is gonna be better on the S21 Ultra, quite simply because it's got the newer, flashier chipset. It's the Exynos 2100 that I've got here, and if you get the Snapdragon variant, then it's overall a better chipset. We do have the similar heating issues and, overall performance inefficiency on the Exynos 2100, just like last year's Exynos 990 had, and it's a major issue if you didn't know already. And the OnePlus, well, it has no such heating issue, but the peak performance is obviously not going to be as good as the latest and greatest out there. So yeah, battery life, very similar on both. Both of them can go up to like 6 to 6.5 hours. The S21 Ultra, if I use it like medium to light usage, then this one can go all the way up to 7. Man, this is a close comparison, especially because we're comparing last year's flagship to the 2021 flagship, essentially the best from Samsung right now, and quite possibly the best is gonna be for 2021, because most probably we won't be getting a Note 21 Ultra. So yeah, I mean, the OnePlus 8 Pro quite easily still takes the win for bang for the buck, essentially. Because if you remember, the OnePlus 8 Pro launched for around $1,000, and in India it was way cheaper. It was around like $650 or between 600 to 650. I don't exactly remember the price, but yeah, $650 for a fully fledged flagship phone, compared to $1,200 for this one. Like right now, you can get it for even less. You can get it for like, I don't know, $500 maybe. That's way less than half of the S21 Ultra. This device is way more worth, like quite candidly speaking, than the S21 Ultra. Does this give you more stuff for the money? Well, yeah, it gives you more, but do you really need everything? Like 8K video. How often are you gonna use it? When you use it, you're gonna get this absolutely tremendous and beautiful detailed video. But how often are you gonna use it? That's a question you're gonna have to ask yourselves. I cannot answer that for you. So yeah, I think if you really do not need all of the crazy features that the S21 Ultra can provide, well then the OnePlus 8 Pro, or maybe the next generation, the OnePlus 9 Pro, is gonna be more than worth it, at least in my opinion. The OnePlus 8 Pro is still king when it comes to just a nice, amazing flagship smartphone with an amazing price tag. The S21 Ultra, however, given how much more refined this year's Samsung flagships are, I just feel like if you really need all those features and you want to play around with them, you want to use the features that you get on the cameras, and you want this big beautiful display, you want a slightly better battery life, well then the S21 Ultra is definitely, well, I wouldn't say like really worth it, because let's face it, this one kind of defines how well a smartphone can be priced, but nonetheless, the S21 Ultra is a premium flagship that can deliver the premium experience now more than anything we've had before from Samsung. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be seeing you guys later. Cheers.